motivated. We all need a little motivation. Money keeping her motivated. We all need a little motivation. Money keeping me motivated. We all need a little motivation. Money keeping her motivated. We all need a little motivation. Keep all the real niggas motivated. Keep all them little niggas motivated. Maybach 600, it drove her crazy. Sure they gon' do it, she motivated. I've been neglecting the rover.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Smooth Podcast, simply motivating others onward through hope. Here to the left of me, I have a guy who's trailblazing and making a way for people like me, other content creators, podcasters, music, album reviewers, anyone that's doing anything in the digital space that is kind of making a name for themselves on YouTube. He's really paving the way for a lot of people out there. I want to kind of give him his flowers out the gate. Here to the left of me, I have Victor. Victor, what's going on?
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you for the love, the invite, everything, the energy. I'm beyond grateful and appreciate, you sharing your time with me, and I'm enjoying this conversation. I'm excited.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, he also goes by the name Sound. He runs Club Ambition. How long has that been going on for?
So it's been going on as a collective, a friend group, without getting the full-on YouTube channel, probably 10 years, around a decade. But then the YouTube channel itself has been going on 7 years. And then as a company officially, probably like three years, like full-on, adulting, LLC, etc., like that whole transition. But yeah, formerly known as Complex Ambition. That was the original name, but the new official name, Club Ambition.
Club Ambition. Okay, so first we're going to dive into, Victor as a person, then we're going to dive into the business side, and then we're going to mix the two at the end.
All right.
Starting off, where are you born and raised?
So I was born and raised here in Providence, Rhode Island, south side of Providence. When it came to raise, for the majority of my childhood was definitely in the south side, but prior to that, there was like bit of all over the place. Like both my parents are, immigrants from DR. And then when they came here to have me, at first they had like kind of nowhere to go. Like they didn't really have a place to, they couldn't really afford it. They didn't have a job here. It was kind of like a staying at a family home type of situation. So that's where we stayed at my aunt, shout out to Medi, my aunt Medi. My cousin Brent, that family, took us in at a very young age, and they helped us, have a roof over our heads. And then aside from that, we would bounce around to a couple other aunts, uncles, etc. But it was all within the Providence area. But the majority of my childhood, then when we first started getting like, Section 8 housing, apartments, the first actual moving in was in the south side of Providence, off of Broad Street, and that's where I grew up. I went to Broad Street, not Broad Street Elementary, but this elementary school right off of Broad Street, Robert L. Bailey. A lot of people know, shout out to Bailey Buddy. And then, yeah, everything was Providence, Rhode Island. My mother had some moments in New York here and there, but she went to school in New York, I think high school for a couple years, but for the most part, everything was always Providence, Rhode Island. For those who don't know, my mother had me very young. She had me at 15 years old. She had me very, very young. So, I remember going through a lot, but now as being a parent myself, I look back, I'm like, I would imagine like my mom went through so much like at that young. But yeah, man, that's my story, kind of like the precipice of me being a Rhode Islander.
And how was your childhood, if you could kind of like put it in a nutshell?
Man, my childhood was interesting. I'm very grateful for it because I think it's established me where I am in right now in the position as, someone that, and I say it humbly, but I see it a lot of times. People always joke around with like, even like the concept, like I say, even in public, people call me it, and at first it's like, I took it kind of weird, but people be like, oh, the mayor of Providence. Like they always put that sort of like jokingly title on me. But what they really mean is, and I'm starting to accept it more, is like, I kind of am accepted by everyone. I can mesh with every crowd, so growing up, that was, looking back at it as well, was what has established me now, because when I was a child, I had friends that, either were passing away young, caught up in gangs, but then I also would get in with the crowds that might have been a part of the chess club, or like, the white kids, like everyone kind of was, attracted to me, or rather more, I would say I was kind of attracted to them. I'll with everyone. I didn't have, oh my bad, can I swear? Does it matter?
Yeah,
Does it matter?
yeah,
No,
you're good.
You're good. But I forgot. I did that the other day at the radio. I was swearing out the radio.
Yeah. We'll bleep out. But
All right.
if you can limit the swears, don't swear.
Say no more.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I was, everyone was always like a friend of mine or cool with me. I never really had any drama or beef. And I really take that back to my parents as well, because I'd remember like being friends. Shout out to OSF, like King OSF, like major rapper who many argue the biggest in the history of like Rhode Island when it comes to like his engagement and everything he's gathered right now. But I remember him literally, he talks about all the time, like he'll come to my house with his friends, like to get me to come outside and hang out because we were friends. But then my mom would be like, nope, he's not going nowhere, he's not here. She'll like be so strict, like she'll try to like maintain, like, because she went through so much young and she saw everything in DR, and she's like, she didn't want me to be a part of that, so it was always borderline, 1 foot like almost going into that lane. And with the grace of God and her actual parenting, being a great mother that she is, she took me out of that lifestyle. But I still had friends in that crowd to this day. But that was my childhood. I have a very strict mother. Everyone will tell you, every one of my friends will tell you, like, no, his mom, they're like all scared of my mom, like, no, his mom is like real deal, you know what I'm saying? And then at the same time, they think at first they might be able to, like, to be cool with her because she looks young, because she's young, beautiful woman. But nah, she don't play that. She's very, like, very, very strict. And my father was always, very, like, business savvy. He always resold cars on the side. He always had like an entrepreneur mindset, but he never went full-fledged with it. He always had like a humble job. Like the majority of my childhood, he was a custodian. Like he was a custodian at Perry Middle School before it shut down. He was a custodian at Central. A lot of people to this day, they see me out like, oh, I remember your father from Central. Shout out to you, because my dad was so, to this day, he's always been so nice and caring. So he'll help out people, like kids will sometimes get into fights. Like he'll tell me stories about kids getting into fights at, at Perry, and him, I'll say allegedly, but him allegedly, like, he has to like hold something for them. Like they ran away, they, got caught up, and he'll hold something for them to like maybe hide it from the teachers, etc. So he was always like looking out for those individuals, even though they were strangers. They really trusted in him. And that's how my father is. He's very much a people person, so he kind of helped me at a young age. And he's very funny as well, very whimsical. So he helped me at a young age, I feel like, embrace more of my personality, because I feel like I'm more like him in a sense of like, I have my own businesses, I do my own thing, I'm a people person, I love talking. And then with my mom, I feel like I got the groundedness. Like I know when not to cross a line. I know, I feel like I'm mature, and I matured at a very younger age, and a lot of my other peers and friends because of her. So I have a very, thankfully well-balanced childhood. Very poor at the same time. We didn't have a car for the majority of my childhood. I remember like literally being pushed in a stroller in the middle of like a snowstorm on Broad Street to grab some food. The Chinese spot, we always eat at the Chinese spot on Broad Street. I don't know the name of it. It's at the cross. It's still there, but it's across the street from like a pizza spot now on Broad Street. I think a Bombasso supermarket, but that Chinese spot, we would always go there and eat food or get food from there. But it was a very very interesting childhood. I sometimes I'll feel like, damn, like, I want to kind of be out there, like that urge of like trying to be like, how my friends would be. But at the same time, I felt like I had to trust and confide in my mother, like she actually knew what she was doing. And now looking back, I'm like, yeah. She definitely knew what she was doing, and to this day, like I feel like I've never smoked still to this day. Like I'll drink on occasions for like a birthday, and that's like newer. Like I really never really was a drinker at all, but to this day I don't smoke, I don't do none of that stuff. But all of my friends, for the majority, they all do it. But I feel like my mother, being the way she is, established me almost to kind of be more of like I feel like a father. Like I always would tell myself like, I move like I'm a father, and then now I have a son, and I'm like, oh damn, I guess I was moving like I'm a father, like preparing myself for that without even knowing that it was gonna happen. At a younger age than I expected, but it happened, and he's a blessing. But it was an amazing, I feel, well balanced type of childhood, at least when it comes to us, because obviously someone from the suburbs or something, they'll say a whole different story that's not well balanced. And I'm like, what? No, it's a whole different thing. Like walking in the snow, you had no car, but that's like that was that truth. You know, we went through that. Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely relate. My father was definitely the most strict parent on the block, and like what kind of messed me up was like the standards that were set in the house weren't the same standards that were around me.
Yeah.
So it kind of messed me up. So say if like I came back home with like a C on a report card or something like that, I'm on lockdown until that changes, right?
Yeah.
My best friend down the street, he gets to see his parents are happy that he passed. So it's like a complete like, why can he be fine with that? I come home and it's the complete opposite. But just like you, like I'm happy about how I turned out. I'm happy about like how strict he was, and now I'm like I'm probably gonna be just as strict like when I have kids.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Moving forward, did you go to college?
Yeah, I went to college. I went to URI. At first, it was a struggle. I'm not gonna lie. That first year, the freshman year was just awful grading wise. But even prior to going into college, I just had some reluctantness because at first I was like, okay, TD is like talent development program is gonna help me financial aid wise, you know. And everyone at classical, all my friends were getting in. Like, oh, everyone's getting TD, but then I didn't get in. And I'm like, why? I'm like, is it my grades? To this day, I really don't know the real true answer because they never really give you like a definite answer. But then luckily, I was a Crusader, College Crusader. So College Crusader is like a, you know, I think it has another name now, but College Crusade was something that you joined from middle school, and it's like after school programs. They help you with homework, etc. They're there to help you, and they have like, you know, these sort of activities that you have to complete to check off like a hour requirement. And if you complete these hour requirements, they'll give you financial aid to kind of help your actual, you know, to your actual career and like whatever college you go to. But then certain colleges had different stipulations, etc. But then when it came to URI, you know, I didn't get into TD, so I'm like, okay, let me check the College Crusade situation, and they were definitely able to help me, but I had to commute. So then that was another thing. I'm like, damn, if I'm going into school, URI, I'm gonna have to be driving all the way to Kingston all the time. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. And at the time, I broke up with my girl that I was with for a while at that time, and then I'm like, and then that was like my first like, you know, major heartbreak situation. And I'm like, damn, this is affecting me to this level. I didn't expect this, you know, naive, young, thinking I'm gonna go into like to college or like a, you know, a girl and like we're gonna be in classes together. Oh my God. But it's like, nah, realistically, it's like you're on your own. Like college is like you're being thrown into the wolves. So that first semester was like awful, you know, and I even had a moment like telling my parents, I'm like, yo, I might like drop out. Like, I don't know about this. Like, this is like, and they were not having it. Like, no, you're going to go. Like, if we got to get more jobs to like help you pay, like, is it money? What is it? I'm like, no, I don't know. I don't know if I'll be able to do this. And then sure enough, you know, I'm the first generation, you know, graduate in my family, and by a landslide. Like everyone, like I have so many uncles and aunts that haven't even, you know, is funny, but at the same time, obviously it's sad, but they haven't really even completed high school. Like it's so crazy, but you know,
what's your degree in?
My degree was entrepreneur management, so college of business. Yeah. But at first I went in like kind of undecided. Then I did business because I'm like, I do business already. I was like reselling sneakers, doing the YouTube thing. I'm like, I do business already. And I'm like, oh, I'll do general business. But then eventually I just picked entrepreneurial management because I'm an entrepreneur. So it made sense. You know, I don't regret it, but a lot of other people, you know, looking back at it, like if you chose like another, if I wanted like a backup plan, necessarily that degree is not necessarily going to help me. But if I had like let's say like a financing or like sort of like, you know, accounting type of thing, maybe I can get like a tax job like a lot of my friends have. But you know, I don't regret it though. I think is all those classes I already was doing the things in real life. Like it was pretty simple. You know, the only challenges I faced was during URI was professor encounters, like, you know, sometimes them being you know, awkward, etc., dealing with that, being the only person of color in a lot of these classes, like all these white kids walking in with suits on because it's a college of business, they're wearing suits, and I'm like, okay, I guess this is how it is. But I'm like, I'm not gonna change who I am. And at that time I didn't have braids, but I had a low cut, and that's when I was trying to, you know, grab more attention like visually in my videos and stuff. So I was like, fuck it, I'm a my bad.
No, you good.
F it, I'm a dye my hair blonde. So I had blonde hair. So I was walking into class looking like Chris Brown, and then everyone else was in suit and ties, and it's like, okay, I would always stand out right away. And then sometimes it'll rub the professors the right way, you know, or sometimes it'll rub them the wrong way. They try to like come at me too aggressive or try to make me an example or something. I don't know what it was, like so much weird moments with the professors in that college. But overall though, I think it was a great experience.
So Club Ambition, aka Complex Ambition, at that time, was that already going on when you were in college?
Yeah, that was already going on.
Okay, so when you first decided to make a YouTube video, first off, what was it? That's one question. Another question is, how long did you want to do it and then actually decide to do it, right?
Yeah.
Usually there's like a time in between, like, oh, should I do it? What are people going to think?
Yeah.
And then, you know, back and forth with yourself.
No, 100%. It's interesting things. I know a lot of people go through that, but, you know, me, I would say I was fortunate enough for the first video that we did to gather a good amount of attention that I was able to feel more confident about just being consistent and not stopping. But at first we did start, you know, just brainstorming ideas of like, you know, we need to do maybe something, you know, we wanted to do clothes at the time. That's what it started as, like, you know, Complex Ambition, like clothing, like as like to wear it in school. Like we all wanted to wear like matching clothes on some like, you know, group stuff, like representing each other as friends because everyone kind of knew us. At the time, it was just a thing we would say, like Complex Ambition, and we had like our logo, we drew it up, but then we did like one shirt, like a one-off, and then from there, Marloon was suggesting, one of my best friends, he was suggesting like, you know, we should do some maybe reactions, like because we watch reactions sometimes. Shout out to Big Quint, he was like he still is, but he kind of retired. Yeah. Big Quint was huge, but he kind of retired.
He's the one that he's in the chair that looks like it's gonna fall.
Yeah,
in a minute, right?
And he'll like go crazy. And like just
I like
jam
his reactions.
out.
I ain't gonna hold you.
And like I would like grow up kind of with him because I remember him going through, you know, his girlfriend being in his life and then not being in his life, him moving into a different house, and like he was a big influential when it came to that. But then what made us really, really want to do reactions was the fact that we would just listen to music every time that it would come out. So every Friday, or at that time, I think record labels would drop albums on Wednesdays. So every Wednesday we would meet as friends, whether it was at my basement, Noel's basement, or another one of my friends, my car. We would get together. If new Drake's dropping on Wednesday night, we'll go get together Wednesday night to listen to it together. Like we want to hear this together, you know, especially when at the time when Drake was premiere music on OVO Sound Radio. He had like this radio show that he'll premiere music on, so we always wanted to listen to that. And then we were like, you know, just putting that on camera. And at the time there was a new album dropping, I think a week later, which was Isaiah Rashad's The Sun Tirade, I believe. So I think it was the second album because he had the Sylvia demo, and then the second one was The Sun's Tirade, and then we reacted to it. It was me and Eric in the car, you know, just driving around. At that time, we would just drive around while the music was playing. We were driving around Roger Williams Park. And the video got like 10,000 or something views, like in the first weekend or something crazy. And then I posted it on Instagram, and then Isaiah Rashad commented back, like, oh, thanks for the love. And I'm like, okay, this is like this? Like, what's going on? And we were kind of like that crew in school. Like I told you earlier, like people always had like a universal appeal where like you would have the kids in the gangs, the kids that, you know, were in chess clubs, you know, the kids of different races and colors would all like just mess with us and be with us, like, you know, because we always represented positivity. We always represented, you know, ambition, being ambitious. You know, we'll walk into class confident, we'll talk to the teachers, you know, we would help people out. You know, I remember literally during that time when we were starting that, like there was like a random kid that was on the stairs just like crying, and I was like talking to him because I felt like he was going through something. I just saw him, you know, I'm not gonna keep walking by him. And then, you know, that quick conversation, I guess, eventually led to him in the future coming up to me like, yo, you know, you saved my life that day. Like, I was like going through it. I'm like, oh man, you know, I was just, you know, being myself. I felt like you needed some help. Like if I was sitting down there, I would want someone to help me. So then that mindset kind of became the brand, you know, Complex Ambition, everyone having ambition and being complex with it. And then, you know, when the video went off with Isaiah Rashad, I was like, maybe it's just that. Maybe people just like us on camera because we're being ourselves. I'm like, let's just keep doing this. Let's keep doing this. And I never stopped. Like, you know, shout out to Eric. He eventually now he fully stopped, but he had moments of wanting to be on camera, not wanting to be on camera. Marloon as well. He'll still come in whenever he feels like it. You know, he's more than welcome to. But even early on, there was a moment where he did like a whole video on YouTube talking about like, I'm done. I don't want to be in the videos no more because he was getting bullied. He'll get comments getting bullied, so he couldn't kind of handle that. But me, right away, I developed, you know, at first it was tough, and it can randomly be tough as well at times. We're all human, but I developed thick skin. I learned how to deal with whatever comments, critics. People are gonna have their opinions. It's just opinions going back and forth. And then I always told myself, like, if I'm doing this, I'm not gonna stop. We're always gonna record. We always got, like, we're growing a following. Like, our subscribers are going crazy at the time, jumping high. I'm like, we cannot let these people down. If I'm building something up, why would I want to stop? There's more people dependent on me now. First, it was just your inner group, your friends and family. Now it's worldwide. We got people from Africa DMing us, especially when we started doing rest in peace to XXXTentacion videos. He was an artist that was very in tune with, depression and people that were suicidal, literally, in his music. That's what his main fan base was for. So once we started doing reactions to him and his music, it helped our channel blow up, and his fan base kind of became kin to ours. Like, we were like, two peas in a pod, because we were early with him, and he helped a lot of reaction channels at the time blow up, because he was that kind of like internet baby. He was so huge online. But then when you broke it down fundamentally, he was going back to that, the suicidal prevention type of artist. So we would get DMs about people, yo, we watched your reaction about X, and the message you said in there, like, that saved my life. Like, you guys help me go through my day. You make my day. People posting us watching the videos with their entire family, with their young baby. I remember like a 40-year-old man ran up to me in the beach years ago, like, yo, like, out of breath. I'm like, I was scared at first. I'm like, yo, what's good? Like, what's going on? Like, was there a problem? Like, what's happening? And he was like, no, bro. I just love your Kid Cudi reaction. I love Kid Cudi, bro. That's my favorite artist. Yeah, I remember you from the Kid Cudi reaction. I'm like, the one from last year?
And till date, one of the X reaction videos is your biggest video, correct?
Yeah.
And do you know how many views are?
That's going on it's probably going to hit on YouTube like 5 million at any point now, 5 million views.
That's crazy.
And that video was like the rawest form of an example of what we are, because at the end, it's us literally, I think either the night of or the day after, I think it was the night of though, that X died. We got the news. We were all together eating at Denny's for someone's birthday or something. And we were like, yo, we got getting the news right in our phones. Like, yo, he just died? Like, what the? So we were like, let's hop on camera. Let's talk about it with the people. And actually, I think it was the next day after he died. And we were like, yeah, we knew we were going to get emotional, but we didn't know we were gonna get that emotional. So at the end, we were like, let's play some of his music, because I didn't want to at first. But I'm like, we're talking. All right, let's just play some of his music at the end to like kind of give him a tribute. And then we just start like kind of crying. And I'm like, wow, we're crying. It's on camera. I'm like, okay, just keep going. We're just raw crying. And then, I cut off the camera. But then afterwards, I was really thinking about, yo, I'm going to just edit this out. Like, I don't know. That was that weird. Like, I don't know. But then I thought about it more, and I'm like, no, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm not even going to edit this. I'm just going to put it up, fresh as is. I don't care if it gets copyrighted because of the music. I'm going to just put it up raw because I just felt like I needed to. And then, like, within an hour, it got like 100,000 views, something crazy in an hour. I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like, what is happening? Like, this is crazy. Like, oh my God. And I felt like this energy. And then now it's become, our biggest piece of content online, where people still bring up moments of that. Like, it's always viral on TikTok, like people posting like scenes of us crying or whatever, or they'll make a meme out of it, whatever the case may be, especially Eric's cry, because Eric's cry, he had like the wild, like wet cry, like it was wild, but it was raw, man. Like, we really were feeling that at the time, and it was amazing. And that goes back to like the precipice of the brand and then the energy that we feel and that we still embark on today with everything that we do when it comes to the content. It's just rawness and just being yourself. And when you do that, I feel like people are going to relate. Even people that might make fun of it or laugh, or even, I know a lot of people that feel that way, like, yo, I would never cry on camera. Like, why are you crying on camera? But I just feel like, because those people don't even cry. Like, they don't even cry at all. It's not they don't want to cry on camera. They don't cry at all. So us crying on camera became this major thing. And I'm like, why is that? At the time, I was like so confused, kind of like, why is this working? I'm like, okay, it goes back to us just being ourselves. So then it just became something that it was obviously a big number, a huge accomplishment, but it wasn't even about the numbers. It was at that point, like, the impact. Like, to this day, people message us, email us, about their lives and us helping them throughout their lives. So that's the real deal currency that we get, for real.
That's what's up. And now, when you kind of, you didn't really have the slow grind, if like your first video, you get 10,000 views quick. When did you decide to like kind of take it more seriously, as in, oh, like I really have an actual business here?
So the business aspect came, I want to say, around the time where I was like graduating, because I'm like, okay, you know, I don't want to have a job like a real deal boss. I want to be my own boss always, so how can I do this? Obviously, for a lot of people that I do know within the city and behind the scenes, I was reselling. I still do resell. So I was like a major reseller, especially when it came down to like the major releases. I always had like the hottest shoe, multiple sizes, and I was like hooking people up, always providing to a lot of local stores, reselling big on eBay, Grailed, etc. And just, Facebook Marketplace, meeting up with people, Craigslist, etc. So a lot of people knew me from that. So that's how I was making money. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, this is dope, but I kind of want to, live off of this. Like we are making money for this. At the time we were just stacking it, collecting it. It wasn't much, especially compared to other YouTubers, but it was a decent amount where it's like, this is something, what are we going to do with it? And then me and Eric decided to like, create a LLC. Let's make this, a potential business, because that's when eventually labels would reach out to, maybe want to do content with us. At the time, I remember when Fader wanted us to do something for the record label that LMA worked at. They wanted to interview us, and they were like, we want to interview you at our studio, etc. So we're thinking maybe New York, but it was LA, and we're like, okay, can you guys pay for us to fly out there? And they were like, no, but, maybe we can set something up in the future. But we were like, let's do this. Let's just fly to LA. And that's what like the early moments of us, first time traveling, as a collective, as a group, and especially as a business, and using that money that we were saving to like actually, invest in ourselves for the branding aspect, like get ourselves out there, network. And that's when we started like actually trying to make this into a business. And then eventually, Eric, he's left the business and I'm fully, 100% owner, but it still was always a matter of how you can generate revenue from this, because a lot of people see the numbers, but they don't realize, like, especially the majority of our content is reactions. So the reactions have to deal with music, and music deals with infringement, copyright issues. Record labels, a lot of times they don't really want to work with you unless they want to work with you. It's not up to you, it's for them to decide. So, YouTube's changing it this year. There's going to be like a new rule that's going to help people. They're going to be way less copyrights, and a lot of these channels are going to blow up and make actual good money. But that wasn't always a thing. So we would deal with that. A lot of the videos being taken down, blocked, have to be re-edited. At that time I had like a slow computer, slow software. So I was dealing with, like, I would stay up to this day. Some nights I'll stay up, but that's me being more meticulous, trying to get timestamps right, thumbnails right. But at that time I would stay up because the technology, the computer, everything was very, very low quality. Like, it just sucked. Everything was like, very weak. And we were able to just, I would say me, I was able to just stay up. Like, a lot of nights I wouldn't sleep. Like, I swear to God, I would not sleep all night. And then next day having to go to class 7 a.m., driving to Kingston to college. So it was like a lot of those, those nights. But I really always felt a passion and a connection with the fans, and a passion for the content creation, and the idea of like, okay, even though we're dealing with this, doesn't mean that it's not a business. You can have a business that's not a successful business. Doesn't mean it's not a business. It just means like you are doing something, especially if you're passionate about it. That's all that really matters at the end of the day. The passion behind your actual, establishment, your actual brand. If it has a purpose, if it has an intention, then that should be the true currency. It doesn't mean like, oh, you don't have to be a Fortune 500 company. That's not, even though that could be a lot of people's end goal, the potential might be there. But, I've always taken the L's as a lesson, not always like a loss. Like, this is going to be a lesson here, we're not making much money with this, but maybe if we do merch, okay, that worked, but maybe not. Maybe we got to switch it up. So it was always trying to kind of reinvent it, but it's a tough thing, so we established it as a business, and now, so we had to go through a whole rebrand thing because of the business. You want to establish it as a business, but you run into these things, you think you can make a name, officially license it, etc., but then other entities, bigger entities, got more money, more lawyers, and if you don't got the money to play with them in court, then you got to realize, okay, you might have to rebrand.
Did you have to change the name because of Complex?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Huh. And like, did they send you like a cease and desist, or?
No, it wasn't to that level. It wasn't officially to that level. It was more of a like, you know, because they're cool. At least at that time, I can say still, because I don't think there's any necessarily negativity between us. But they reached out to potentially maybe work with us, you know. But then it was kind of at the same time that was kind of happening, where we were trying to maybe make this name legal, you know, and they just were basically saying, for layman's terms, it was basically a situation where it's like, you can maybe prove that you can own this, but we just don't have. I don't have the money to like fight them in court or want to do that, you know. At the same time, but at the same time, I always felt a sense of like separation was needed, and in the same time, because people come up to me to this day, they'll be like, "Oh, Complex," like they'll just say that, you know, but they might not know Complex News or the magazine, the company, but I obviously do, especially because I come from that world, that culture, reselling, like they're very, very big in that. So I've always known of them, but the brand identity separation was necessary at the same time, because that word wasn't the strongest word in our brand. It was just the first word. So some people might say that, but we always represented the second word, which was ambition. You know, so ambition was always like our main objective. Even the intro and outro to this day is the Wale song when he's saying ambition. You know, they're gonna love me for my ambition. That's always been our thing. So rebranding was just, you know, it's a part of, I feel like, a lot of major companies, you know, journeys, you know, a lot of big companies and corporations that they deal with it, and they've dealt with it. A lot of people don't know. If you go down and check history, it's happened a lot. So it was just something that, you know, we didn't have to like do, like literally, like it wasn't like, oh, we needed it no matter what, but it was something that we, you know, felt was necessary for us, because if I can't officially, you know, afford to, you know, make a Complex Ambition, let's say, mug, and not worry about some legal ramifications, then why would I want to do that? Now, if I can own this name that's unique, still similar, but then at the same time, it creates that sort of rebrand energy. And in my opinion, it just sounds better. It feels more welcoming, like welcome to the club. You know, you're part of the club, Club Ambition. Everyone's invited. You know, you're a member now. I feel like it just sounds better and it feels better. So it was like rebranding is just necessary, and that happened, and I did it, and so far it's been pretty cool. But people still always gonna, you know, refer to it as the old name, but it doesn't matter, because at the same time, no one, I feel like I'm pretty sure as of now, no one owns that name, and no one ever will, because if they try to, they're gonna know who were the first people with it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Who were the first? Who were the first three people that either reposted, commented, or DM'd you that you had to kind of like rub your eyes and like hold your phone away, like, oh shoot, like X, Y, and Z just hit me up?
Man, the first three people, that's a good question. I remember the first two. I know that the Isaiah Rashad comment was crazy. I'm like, oh wow, this is insane. You know, this is pretty dope, you know, because we genuinely were big fans of him. And he's not like a mainstream artist, but he was still huge to us. Like, we loved him so much. And then after that was when we did the Alicia Keys album. We reacted to the Alicia Keys album. And we got a random DM from Swiss Beats. And Swiss Beats was like, yo, I'm in bed right now with Alicia. We just watched the reaction. She was like getting emotional, tearing up. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? I'm like, okay, this guy's pranking me. And then ever since then, he always maintained like a friendship, a relationship with us. Like, he always, like, you know, always showed us love, always would randomly DM us. Like, he'll send us like random DMs. Like, whenever I would try to, in the past, try to do like an interview with him, etc. And like, he'll say his excuse, which was an accurate excuse of what he was doing at the time. He'll send me like a photo of what he's doing. Like, yo, my bad, I'm over here, I'm doing this, I'm overseas. He'll send a photo rather than, you know, because I felt like he wanted it to be genuine. He's like, yo, I'm not lying, I'm not trying to like flake on you guys. But that was always genuine respect. And in that reaction was also example of like why I always still do it. Not because of the fact that they specifically reached out, but the fact that video didn't get necessarily a lot of views, but it's like the concept of people doing stuff for views gets misconstrued, because you have to realize, you know, that shouldn't always be your actual drive. You got to do it because, going back to the passion of the brand, but also because of the intention. If you really like this, you know, you never know who's watching. It's not about the numbers of people that's watching, you know, it's about who's watching, you know, and you never know. So the right person might be watching at the right time, and you find that out, and it could change, you know, your life. Even if it's not financially, your drive might change. You might feel like, oh wow, this guy's watching. Okay, I'm gonna take this more serious. You never know. So Swiss Beats was huge, So it was Isaiah Rashad's Swiss Beats, and after that, I don't know. There's definitely been a bunch of other people, but I don't know the specific like order after that. It got so like crazy, like especially with the social media accounts. Yeah.
And now, when trying to pick a host or pick a guest for your podcast now,
Yeah.
something interesting that I've been running across, and like I'm small time compared to Club Ambition, but something that I'm like, I didn't even perceive this happening, is so many people want to, hey, like I want to be on the podcast, like so many people,
Yeah.
and then it's just like you want to say yes to everyone, of course, but then it's like you're diluting your podcast if you do that.
Yeah.
What are some ways where you've either told people no or have told people, like, what are your ways of telling people no?
To be honest, a lot of times I do just say no. I'm not gonna lie. At first, because like going back to like I'm a people person, so I get it, and I do advise people. I think it's a good idea to reach out to people, especially if you want to get your stuff out there, to go on other people's platforms. I think it's a beneficial thing, I necessarily never have done it, but now looking at it from like, a perspective of like I'm so into podcasts. I watch podcasts all the time, and I see like these comedian groups and like these actor groups or these people that are just creators that are podcasters. They go on each other's platforms and stuff, and they create this community, and they help each other out. So I think it's like a good thing. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to reach out to someone like, oh, can I be on your podcast? But I definitely have said no to a lot of people. And the reason is just because I just genuinely interview who I want to interview. I sit down with who I want to sit down with. And it's a lot of times I find people interesting, but I might not find them interesting enough, whereas like, this is necessarily not gonna be, very impactful content if we just do streamline interview. But I want to get your perspective on some things, so maybe I can have you co-host as well. So I love doing that with people where we're talking about a mainstream topic, and then they can get a co-host vibe with me as well. So I make it work that way as well. But I definitely have said no to a lot of people, and I use examples like they might, for them to not feel bad. I'll be like, I have my own family members that want to be on, and I tell them no. Like, it's not like I'm being an asshole. It's just like I do it with whoever I want to do it with. And some people understand. Some people understand to the point that they won't even feel like some type of way or even ask. What they'll say is like, I can't wait when I'm on the podcast, but when the time is right, I know I got to earn it or something. Like, a lot of people feel that way already, and it's because they know, like, look at the people I'm having on. It's for a reason, because I know these people, you know?
Right. Yeah, no, I just wish I would have known that, like, the influx of people that are, like, in the Smooth Podcast DMs, like, that was actually going to happen, because it's just like, man, like, I try to be respectful and, like, answer everybody, but it just gets to a point where it's just like, yo, like, one, like, I don't know who you are, right?
That's the main point
and
for me.
It's like, the second thing is just like, if I just say yes to just everybody, it just dilutes the brand, and it's just like, I want to have, like, entrepreneurial or like really top line people on this podcast, you know what I mean? So if I don't even know who you are to kind of check your credentials of like, your Instagram is really who you say you are, like, it would just dilute everything. So I was just wondering about that, because it must be crazy in your DMs with just like people that want to get on it,
Oh no, yeah, man, you got to protect your peace, and you got to protect your space when it comes to stuff, because you got to just be selective, like, with what you're doing. People feel some type of way depending like who you have on. Like, I had recently on the War Rack, and that was like a whole thing. But then it's like goes back to like, I just do who I want to do. Like, okay, you might have felt some type of way because of that.
But I'm sure there was some local rappers that like, damn, like they don't even, they're not even real rappers like that. Like, why didn't you give me a shot?
Yeah, they might feel that way, but it's like, yo, I genuinely had questions for these guys. They answered, and they also have their own fan base, have millions of views on Facebook, etc. I don't think they're really hurting nobody. Like, if you watch the interview, they're just crazy, and they have a lot of trauma, and they say it themselves. So who am I to really genuinely judge? And I felt like I had to have that conversation.
Do you have a schedule for your podcast? Because in line of you being selective on who you pick, sometimes like someone or there might not be a person to come on like as a
Yeah,
host.
yeah.
I'm saying. So like in that instance, like, do you have like a religious schedule for your podcast, or is that when you kind of just do like the current topics if there's no host, obviously?
Yeah, so it's a bit of both. Like it'll be maybe a week where I feel like I want to do the other topics. You know, I want to do news topics. I just want to do me. I really don't want to, because at that same time, I don't want the podcast to become purely like, you know, guest based. Like I don't want it to just be known for that. You know, our biggest, you know, most viral clips so far with the millions of views online, you know, have been moments from the podcast where it's just me talking. You know, the Little Dirk, when I was talking about Little Dirk's, you know, situation and his birthday party, how I felt about like what he said at that time, you know, turning 30, etc. That clip on YouTube as a short has like I think 6 million views or something crazy. Like, and that was just me by myself. And I know that people are first gonna like the topic, and I feel like I genuinely can break something down where people can respect it. And at the same time, you don't really see that type of content, you know, on TikTok from people of color. You just see like a lot of white people breaking something down or like talking about the financials or numbers. So I feel like if I'm doing that, I feel like it's gonna captivate something. At the same time, it's good quality. It looks nice. It's and I feel like it just works. So
Yeah.
I feel like I can hold my own. So I don't want to be guest reliant. But you know, there is a set foundation type of schedule. So I record every Monday and I drop every Tuesday. And it's strategic because if you look it up, a lot of the biggest podcasts in the world, they always drop like on Tuesdays, every Tuesdays for some reason. But I think it's because Monday's the start of the week, so they kind of cover the topics of the Monday that came from the weekend. You know, all the major news kind of breaks on Mondays to start the week. So then on Tuesday, you have content talking about it. It works. So I drop every Tuesday morning right away. So Monday night recording and then Tuesday morning right away. But then sometimes you, like you said, you know, I have a guest. It could be that type of moment where like I think today I got an email or like a text before I got here where a guest I have a big guest coming up I'm excited for, but they had to reschedule. And then now I'm like, okay, I already had the news topics covered and kind of sketched out because I almost do it like a script, literally. Like I'm very professional with my notes. Like I take it very serious, and that is gonna become now the podcast. Now I'm like, now I'm gonna do news coverage because they can't make it this week, so I gotta reschedule them. So it could be that situation as well. But I'm prepared for anything.
Mm-hmm. And now back to the business side of things. In your years of YouTube, has the amount per, you know, 10,000 views or whatever changed over the course of time? Or what is it like? What is like the standard like amount right now for views? Like, we'll say 100,000. What does 100,000 views right now equate to money wise?
That's a good question. Because me personally, I don't even know. Because like you said, it does change, and it depends the content you're making for some reason. Because a lot of people don't realize the way that YouTube works and monetization on YouTube works. You know, Mr. Beast is a big YouTuber, probably the biggest YouTuber of all time at this point. He breaks it down really good if you guys want to look him up. But the way it works is basically retention based. Retention meaning like the more people are actually watching your video fully, the more money you're going to make. It's not about just the views, because you can have a bunch of views, but someone can watch a video, I think, for 30 seconds or more, and it counts as a view, something like that. So that doesn't mean that they're gonna pay you, because if it was that easy, YouTube would, you know, Google, which owns YouTube, they wouldn't, you know, they'll be bankrupt. Like they'll be paying everyone like way too much money, but it doesn't work that way. It's about retention. So it's about the longer people stay watching your videos, you know. So you can have moments where like people check out your video because they think they might like it, but if they don't like it, they'll just log off. So it's not necessarily based on the views. You know, there'll be videos that'll get 100,000 views and you might just make $100 like for that video, right? But then there'll be some videos where you might make, you know, let's say $300 to $400. It always fluctuates. It's not necessarily like one set standard. But that's something that I've got to learn in the past like 2 years, like to be honest, because a lot of that information, they kind of hide it. They don't make it too straight up. It's vague. But then you got creators like Mr. Beast, etc. They talk about it. They break it down for you to kind of digest it more. And you realize, okay, like this is kind of like a game that they play as like a business, and you kind of got to play with them. Like now they just added finally they're gonna pay creators for YouTube Shorts.
Right, I saw that. Yeah.
So that's a major thing that just happened a couple days ago. So I'm excited for.
That's probably to keep up with TikTok.
Yeah, because that's the thing. They try to make YouTube like a social media now, because YouTube, you have to have an @ name on YouTube.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like a new thing. So they're making YouTube Shorts like the #1 thing to pump up that algorithm, you know. And I'm excited because I had a bunch of shorts that got millions of views, and that was prior to them paying. So I'm gonna see if those qualify now for payment. But if not, I'm going crazy this year. I'm trying to like pump so much content when it comes to that type of form, the 9:16 frame. Mm-hmm. But yeah, man, it's a tricky situation. You kind of just gotta is it the way you would really make money, and I'm gonna get more into it this year, is really more through sponsorships. Mm-hmm. To be honest, like your content being sponsored, and that's why I've got to know more and realize more, because genuinely, as like with anything, when it changes, they're gonna have fans acting how they act. So there's moments of, you know, the channel kind of going down when Eric left the situation, or when the rebrand happened, people maybe being confused. So there's going to be some like decline. So then you're going to see that money that would come in monthly go down. Mm-hmm. So I'm like going through that, but then you get moments of like upheaval, viralness, and like the channel numbers might go up again. But then, you know, this past, like I would say couple months, it's been like surprisingly shocking, like financially. I'm not gonna lie, with the channel and everything, I've been like, okay, I've been thinking about, I definitely gotta like get to it. I gotta do some other stuff, and everything's more expensive now. Bills are getting higher, rent at the studio, everything gets higher. So I'm really driving towards getting more sponsorships, and even on a local level, especially because the podcast is so big right now in Rhode Island. Like I feel like it's like the biggest like podcast in Rhode Island history. Like nothing of that nature has existed, especially with like the guests. So I really want to put like small businesses on. I want to incorporate them on a sponsorship level, where I feel like I can promote a business genuinely. It could be funny, skit wise, whatever the case may be, and I can incorporate it into the podcast, where it's like not too long to make people not look away, but it's gonna be short enough where it's like you might not see it, or you see it and it's so good that you want to maybe even become like a tourist site. You want to come to Providence or check out, let's say, California tacos, etc. So that's why I'm gonna start doing more local, you know, sponsorships, because a lot of times you work with these big companies, Manscaped.
They are everywhere.
Yeah.
They are like
that's
number
like,
one. Like
that's like the number one that's come back and worked with us here and there, but they're inconsistent. Like they want you to be big, so like that's why the big guys stay with them, and they stay with them, but they're inconsistent. If they don't feel comfortable with you, they'll just do tests and they'll throw a couple dollars, but the majority of times it's just a bunch of free clothes, a bunch of free, you know, product, and it's like, okay, I don't want that. I want the money. So I'm veering towards doing maybe definitely more local sponsorships this year as well. So that's gonna be the big thing for the channel, hopefully.
Last but not least, before we get into the questions, the individual questions, I really like all of the content that you do when you're kind of like on the ground level. When you're kind of like at the scene per se, and you're doing interviews and you're doing commentary kind of like at these certain spots. One, what gave you the kind of influence to go out and do something like that? The second thing is just in your life. So, you know, like you said, you have a child, you have a girl, etc. Like, are they cool with you kind of just like dropping it, like, oh, like this big thing just happened, promise, I gotta go. Like, like how do those conversations happen?
So luckily enough, I have, you know, a girl that's, you know, she's extremely supportive. I really wouldn't be doing none of the stuff that I'm doing right now without her, because like a lot of times, a lot of people might not know it, but she'll be the person like behind the camera, like it's real deal. Like she'll be there, like she does not care. Like she'll go with me if she's available, obviously, but because she's her own boss as well. So she does lashes, she does makeup, so she might have appointments, etc. But when she's available and she's down to go, she'll be there with me. Like she does not care. But that as of now definitely has never become an issue. You know, it just gets you know, weird sometimes, because like I've told her, you know, I'm doing a lot of content now, and it's like I want to do some content sometimes with like a female on camera. And, you know, we had the viral moment multiple times with Chelsea. Her @ name's Chelsea Kulo, and she's like you know, a big OnlyFans creator, so I had multiple viral moments with her. But she was the one filming at that time. But then she'll look back at it afterwards, like she was a bit too much. Like what the? And I'm like, yeah, it's her. Like I'm not. You're here. What am I doing?
Yeah,
like I'm not doing nothing. Wow, you got relax. But it's never really affected that, thankfully. And with my son, like I said, my mom, she thankfully, man, she was extremely supportive of me having him. And her mother as well. We're very blessed, I'm not gonna lie, to have I think he has the best like grandparents in the world on both sides. And like they'll die for this kid like it's nothing. Like they want to see him. Like they rather us like, oh yeah, go do your thing, like be busy. Like they want to take care of him more than like they'll call us just to see him on FaceTime more than they want to ask us about our day. And it's like, I think my mom already called me while I've been here. Like that's how she is. She always wants to see him on FaceTime, but it's never really affected the content. But what made me want to do that was I've always watched, because that's my thing when it comes to Rhode Island. I feel like a lot of people don't realize, like, okay, smallest state in the country, so you feel like you might have like the smallest drive. We can't do nothing here, but it's the opposite. You got to take examples from the biggest cities. Everyone in New York, LA, they're doing content on the street. Why is no one out here doing it? Shout out to my boy, Success Comes First. He was doing it a couple years ago, but he stopped for a while. And he was doing it kind of in school, and he was like a younger crowd. It wasn't real. I don't even think he was an adult yet. So it was like a lot of that content sometimes is like, why were you talking to high schoolers about how many people they slept with? It looks weird.
I think I'll kind of answer that question. So I think the answer is in the bigger cities. So say if you lived in New York or if I lived in New York and we're doing content like you just said, like there is going to be millions of people who have no clue who we are.
Yeah.
Now, if me or you do content like that in Providence, like at least 1 out of every 4 people is gonna know who we are.
Yeah, the ratio's higher.
It's just it's more uncomfortable because people actually know you.
Exactly.
That's probably why.
Exactly. No, it's true. And then when I started doing it, like I genuinely, and I say it, humbly, like without even trying to be cocky, but I felt like, okay, I'm gonna do this. The first one, which was PVD Fest, and I'm like, okay. That
was a good one to start. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is happening this weekend. Let's do this. My boy Edwin was always, here and there saying like, yo, I want to kind of do that type of content. And I'm like, yo, I've always said it. Like, we should do that. Like, it always existed. The TikTok version or the more professional version, like the TV show Billy on the Street. Billy Eichner, he's like a white comedian. He would always run around the street. He's like a gay white guy. It would be mad funny. And like he'll run around New York interviewing people with the mic. But I'm like, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this professionally. I'm not going to walk around like these guys walk around with their iPhones. No disrespect to them. They can do that. But I'm like, I'm going to stand different. I want to look different. So I'm like, we got to get a mic holder, a mic flag. Like this needs to look different. Like it needs to look professional. So I bought a microphone and I got like a mic flag. And we did it, PVD Fest, and we started walking around, and people were like, "Oh, are you the news? Are you the news?" I'm like, "Kinda, yeah, I am the news. Like, what's up?" And people felt comfortable talking to us, and a lot of people knew me already from YouTube. So, and I'm also like a homebody. I really don't go out unless it's like content creation. Like I gotta have an intention. Like, what am I gonna do here if I'm going out? Like, I gotta benefit from this, especially now with a kid. Like, I'm not just gonna go out to like. No, I don't smoke. I'm not gonna do no hookah. No. Unless your family, like, no, I got a kid. I'd rather just be with my kid at home. Like, let's be honest. So, people were every time I'm out, and it always would be a thing. So, like, if I collaborate that with the content, PVD Fest was an example and like an experiment that worked. So I did it, and people were like, "Yo, you from YouTube?" So a bunch of people going up to me. But then at the same time, it was an experiment. So a lot of times the microphone, when I look back at the footage, the audio would like mess up. And like a lot of the stuff was corrupted. I'm like, damn, this might not be good to put out. But then it was good enough moments that I put out and it still went viral. And like that stuff, and it was local content talking about local stuff that went viral. Like the guy that was talking about like the boom scoop, like, yo, I got a boom scoop, and he's talking about like PVD triangle love, something like that. And that went viral on Twitter. That went viral on Twitter. I'm like, yo, this is so crazy, and I'm not even giving nobody a script. I'm not telling nobody what to say. I'm just putting a camera and a mic in their face, and they're just being themselves. And they're from Providence, Rhode Island. So people are going to be like, oh, this place is actually interesting. Or they're going to be like, yo, I'm just like that. And I live out here in North Carolina. Like, I didn't know that Providence, Rhode Island is funny like that, or people that interesting. So it's like, that's my objective. Like, I'm just trying to, give a window into the city, into the state where a lot of people aren't. And especially at that level where the quality is good. You see the guy walking around with a microphone. It looks more professional. It's different. Yeah. It's more captivating. Yeah. And I put the captions where like people kind of like, you know, you get even an audience. A lot of people don't know there's a big audience, obviously, that are deaf. They can't even hear. And I have fans like that. So like putting the captions is not just to get people's attention. It's to get that fan base as well, where like visually they'll be able to hear that, to see that. And like they read it and they read along and they're like, oh, this is this is funny. Oh my God, I like this. You know, it becomes more universal because it's not necessarily like, you know, oh, you have to just hear it. You can read it along and get it. You know, and a lot of people might know English, but they don't know it that good. And then they read along, it helps them as well. So the captions is a key thing. So, you know, those clips I was doing with those captions going viral, they went viral on Facebook. It was all Rhode Island based content talking about Rhode Island stuff. And I'm like, yo, this is an example of why I got to keep doing this. Like people, Rhode Island goes viral. Like this gets attention. So why are you knocking it? Like you should be supporting this. Let's keep doing this. So that content stuff is some of my favorite things, but I try not to saturate it either. Because I can do that every weekend. Realistically, I can go to the mall and interview people every weekend and probably get moments every weekend, but I don't want to saturate that yet, you know? And then maybe, like I said, I might get a sponsor, local sponsor to like coincide with that and make it more financially savvy. But yeah, that's coming back soon. I got a better microphone set up, a whole new mic flag. So that's going to be big this year as well.
All right, I got some rapid questions for you.
Yeah.
How do you measure success?
Whew, great question. I measure success. That's a great question. Because I think about this question a lot. You know, I watch so much interviews and podcasts and everything. I measure success probably by, I would say how things would be, you know, if God forbid I were to die tomorrow. Like it gets to that dark. I feel like it gets to that level of like, what is my legacy? That's what my success is going to be. What is my legacy? Not necessarily like, oh, he's on ESPN talking, oh, he got a big time job here. I feel like my actual impact, like if I were to die tomorrow, what are people going to say? Did I actually like do something positive? Did I help someone? Did is my son going to be okay? Like that to me is what success is. And it's scary because that's what I genuinely think is success. But at the same time, I feel like I almost have already reached that sometimes because I feel like I've done so much positive things that if it's not being measured on a financial level, if it's just being measured on that, like I did so much already that I technically am successful, you know, but I don't want to lose that drive either. I don't want to lose that ambition to keep going. So that's a question I ask myself all the time. Is that success then? Is that how I really measure it? But as of now, as of today, I think that's the way I measure it.
Give me two of your best friends. What are their names? You might have more, but just give me two.
Two of my best friends, Eric Robles, which was known on the channel as YI, and Marlon Vargas.
So if I go up to Eric, if I go up to Marlon separately, and I say, what's one thing that Victor needs to work on? What would each one of them tell me individually?
Oh, they'll probably say, because they'll probably say, I think they'll both say the same thing, to be honest. Probably maybe he's crazy. You know, they'll say I'm crazy. I used to feel sometimes maybe like they might say like my ego, because a lot of times, especially when they wouldn't want to do content, etc., I'll think like, is it me? Like, is it me? Like, what? But then I start to realize like it's not really just, even if it is me sometimes, it's not me. It's like everyone has their own journey. You can't force them. I can't wake up tomorrow thinking that he's going to be like me. I'm me. So why would I want him to think like me, be like me? That's something I'm learning more. So I'm letting people be them, But they'll definitely say I'm crazy because of situations where like, I wouldn't sleep editing. Like they know that. Like I wouldn't sleep editing. I'll stay up all night. There'll be days we go on trips, to possibly maybe interview Trippie Redd in LA, etc. So we gotta like, plan. They want to nap, whatever. I'm staying up. Like I'm staying up because I know like naturally I was like the leader. Like without even trying to be the leader, I was always like the leader of the group or like the A mic when it came to the content. I would like lead the content and the content. So they'll probably say that. They'll probably definitely say I'm crazy no matter what.
Would you rather be loved or respected?
Ooh. I would rather be respected. I'd rather be respected because I feel like there's a lot of people that show love, but a lot of times it's fake love, and I'd rather be respected for sure.
Who's your biggest inspiration?
Whew. My biggest inspiration. My biggest inspiration. That's a great question. Oh man, I have so many, but to narrow it down to one person, who would it be? Maybe it would have to be someone that's like multifaceted. Maybe who just passed away? The legend of the that would do the interviews. Oh my god, I used to watch it all the time. That'll be like up there with my biggest inspiration. The white lady that passed away, that would do the interviews all the time on ABC. But stereotypically, when it came to the podcast lane, I would say Joe Budden. Joe Budden's a huge one. I'll say Joe Budden. Joe Budden. Even though I feel like he could do more, but I no matter what, I listen to him. I was literally listening to him on the way here. So Joe Budden's like a big one. Joe Budden.
What's your most regretful purchase?
Whew. Most regretful purchase probably was like I think it was last year, 2 years ago. It was like a coat I bought, like $1,000 coat, Montclair coat. It was like one of my most regretful purchases because I ended up selling it. A lot of stuff that, because I come from the resale world, so I know the value of things. Like I'll see, okay, this is cool to wear, but then I know that I could sell this, or like, okay, this costs this much. I would never, ever, do what I did there in that moment, especially now as a father. Looking back, is like these material things really don't have value. Like people think like they do because like aesthetically pleasing, people wearing it, you want to wear it too. But at the end of the day, like the richest people in the world, like I remember meeting with a millionaire years ago in LA. He's like a fan and he potentially wanted to invest in us. And he was asking us questions we couldn't even answer at the time because we were so young. But then the whole time I'm looking at this guy, I'm like, this guy has this white shirt, like it's wrinkled. He has these like plaid shorts that are like ugly. And he has like these slides that look like they might not even fit him. But he's so rich because he came in an extremely nice car. He came like in a Benz. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why would I care about like these things? But that was one of my most regretful purchases, that thing. And I'm grateful to say that because I feel like if people think like that's something, but that might be nothing. But I know a lot of people that's that have done worse purchases and that like crazy amounts of things. But that's my most regretful purchase, that materialistic thing. Because I've said I'd never care about it and I bought it, but then I ended up selling it anyways. But yeah, that would be it.
When it's all said and done, how would you like to be remembered?
Great question again. Ray got all the great questions. When it comes to, at the end of the day, how I would want to be remembered, I say I want to be remembered as someone that, was a good father. Was a good father to his kid. Someone that was, inspirational to that person, to someone, to even strangers, that someone I might expect. Because I have so many conversations with all walks of life, and I feel like it all comes down to that, going back to the legacy, like who were you, looking back, who was that person while they were here alive? And if someone were to say, he's not a good dad, or he was an awful dad, or he wasn't even a dad, and, he never really, helped me, or he never helped even someone I know, I feel like I'll feel like, that would be such a worthless almost life. Like, what type of life is that? Like, I never would want to, feel that. And I would feel that at a young age, kind of feel that type of like, sort of like, okay, my legacy, what am I doing? And then now as I'm a father, manifesting the business and becoming older, that's become like, okay, I definitely want to be, known for that. A good father and someone that might have inspired either you or someone that you know.
And as we wrap things up, do you have any questions for me?
Man, what is your goal with this? We kind of talked about it a bit off camera, but do you have a long-term goal with this? Because I definitely want to, see you succeed. I think there's a big space for more podcasts locally, and you're amongst those that of the highest quality. So for you to continue, I think is necessary. So what is your goal with this?
So my goal with this is it's interesting because as selfish as a goal it is, it's also unselfish. So my goal is to be able to, and I kind of did it today, because today was like our first like real conversation, and it's basically to outreach people that I see are doing great things and provide a tree branch for them to connect with them. So say if my podcast keeps doing good, keeps going up, I'll be able to contact whoever from Boston who's making millions of dollars doing X, Y, and Z. And now I have an actual platform where I say, hey, come share your story. Usually people would say, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have that as a friend. I have that as a contact person, as a resource.
Definitely.
Because, in this world, and I'm sure like you're only as big as your resources.
Mm-hmm.
You're only as big as your contacts. So with this platform growing, my contacts, my resources will grow. And when it comes to like my personal brand and things I want to do in my career, and obviously like my event space and all these other things, like everything else will grow with it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is more so just as that ultimate tree branch of, people that I want to be in cahoots with, people I want to have direct contact with. I have like a visible and a actual platform to not only put them on, but to also shed light on them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I love that. No, I think it's necessary. You're doing your thing. You have an intention. You have a positive outlook. You're very interesting, especially now with the first conversation off camera. A lot of things I didn't expect. I'm like, oh wow, he does all this. I'm like, this is dope. So you got my support. So whatever you need.
Appreciate that. As we wrap things up, if there's someone out there who, they just took 10 steps back, they had a big kind of bump in the road and they're kind of on hard times right now, what's something you could tell that person that can get them back on the right path and motivate them?
I'll tell that person, and some might find it cliche. That's a lot of people, is definitely a cliche, or they might have heard it already, but they don't believe it. But genuinely, I do believe that everything that we go through in life, two things, it can be worse. There's people in situations that, you might be frustrated because, let's say, you were late for class and like, oh man, I didn't study, and you might have passed the test, but it was a C, but you're going crazy about it. But then at the same time, there's people, so you saw today, they're saying almost 3,000 people passed away in Turkey, Syria, because of an earthquake. Mm-hmm. There's people going through stuff of that nature. So you got to see that and actually be like, okay, I can push through this, because there's a lot of other things that could be worse, are worse, and this is not going to define me. I can overcome this. And another thing I would tell them is that, genuinely just ask yourself, why do you feel frustrated? What is the problem? Ask yourself that, because a lot of times we make it a problem. It could be like this cord, it might just randomly light on fire, and then we gotta stop recording real quick. That could be the problem, but in reality, when you make it the problem, like, you ask yourself, is this a problem? What is the problem? You might find a solution. Like, okay, we could just grab a cord from over here, just pause it real quick and, fix it this way. You got to think about it that way more. You got to think about it like, okay, what is the problem? Is it a problem? Oh, it could be fixed. And then you'll actually come to some sort of solution. I feel like a lot of people, they dwell. I have a lot of friends and a lot of people I know, they dwell on the negative every day, and like they dwell on it, and it's like, you got to be more optimistic, man. Like, you got to, I know it's tough to, trust me, but you got to look at it like, why is it a problem? And is it actually a problem? And then eventually you might be able to find a solution.
Okay. Well, I definitely thank you for popping out. This has been wonderful. I wish you much success on your business, in your family life, personal life, business life, all the above.
Appreciate it, man.
You're definitely going to do great things. And yeah, man, thank you again for coming out.
I appreciate you, man. Whenever you want to have me back on, just let me know. I'm down. You got my support. And, let me know when you're ready to join the Fatherhood gang.
Coming soon. As always, stay smooth out there.
Peace.